Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch Podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Taniko Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight. Hello and welcome to an episode of the Queen's Couch. I'm so excited to have you here tonight. So, tonight we are talking about the impact of mentorship tonight. And so tonight, this starts our series for the month of June. And in June, the Queen's Couch is going to have the Kings on the couch with her. We're going to talk to some mentors, some men with some transformational stories, and we're going to dive deep. We're going to talk, we're going to chat, and we're going to glean from the wisdom of men, our Black men. I love all men, but it's nothing like a Black man. So tonight I have none other than my mentor, Willie Diggs, Pastor Willie Diggs, with us on tonight. And I'm excited for him to share with us. And welcome to the Queen's Couch. Pastor Willie, how are you tonight?
I am doing well, Dr. Taniko, my mentee. I'm excited to be here. This is my first time on the Queen's Couch.
Well, it will not be your last. So, guys, I want you to begin with the future, build with the future in mind. And so that might sound a little familiar to you, Pastor Willie, because it is your words to build with the future in mind. And so I'm going to turn it over to you for you to tell us a little bit about who is Pastor Willie Diggs and why is he the expert on mentorship to us all tonight.
Dr. Taniko, thank you again. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity to share. Who is Pastor Willie Diggs? So I am an emerging global community influencer. And what I like to do, I love to help those who are transitioning through life to get to the place that God has designed them to be. I've been in mentorship 20 years. I started when I was 19 years old. And I've been doing this work for quite some time. So excited to be here. I'm a pastor. I'm a father. I'm a global person. I'm an educator. Most people don't know, but I'm a master's level social worker. I work in academia. I serve as the director of field education in the Department of Social Work. So yeah, that's who all Pastor Willie Diggs. And I'm a son of God.
It really does sums it up, but you're so much more. You're such an amazing intercessor. You kind of provoked intercessors to pray. You're just so many different things. You're really multifaceted and you are a gift from God. And I am so excited about you being my mentor. And I'm excited about you being on the Queen's Couch on tonight. So we're going to dive in. So when you think about mentorship, why is mentorship so impactful in the life of an individual?
Well, Dr. Taniko, I think one of the things that we have to go back is to understand that we're not designed to do life by ourselves. And there are opportunities and experiences that those who are connected to us have experienced. And there's no need of both of us bumping our head if I've already bumped my head and you got a listening ear and desire to be mentored or coached to the next level. I think that one of the things that make mentorship so impactful is that it gives language and sight to those who may be exploring where they want to go, but that mentor is a trusted voice that can get them from one space to the next space. So I believe that if we actually lend our ear over to more mentorship, the transition from one level to the next level gets a little bit easier because the way is explained and it kind of erases that I don't know.
That is so true. Having that mentor helps you to navigate life and it give you language for what you're going through. Sometimes you don't even know, you have these gifts, you have these abilities, you have this interest in something, but you don't know really what it's like to chart that path. And so having a mentor, a real mentor, a lot of people say they're a mentor, but having a real mentor that you're going to see your growth, you're going to trust their voice, and whenever you speak to them or you're in their presence, you get nuggets to go to the next level, or your life is impacted and you just know that this is the person that you trust. So, what advice would you give to someone who is seeking a mentor and they don't know who should be their mentor? What would be some things you would tell that person?
Listen, I love questions like this because I have a tendency to think that closed mouths don't get fed. I think one of the things that mentees need to do is that if you see someone who is in your proximity and you desire to be mentored by them, I think it's imperative that you make the step to request their assistance. A lot of times there are mentors who are literally gifted. They got the time, they got the skill, and they're wanting to help, but they're waiting on, they want to pour into people who are ready to be poured into. I often tell my mentees is that I cannot pour water into a closed glass. So if you're going to want to desire to be in this mentorship relationship, you got to desire to be poured into. You got to get in a posture of being poured. But here's another thing, Dr. Tanico, that I think we miss is that mentorship is a dual relationship. It's not just the mentor learning or the mentor teaching, but the mentor is also learning. I was thinking about a conversation that you and I had just a day or so ago, and how much insight we learn from each other because we're in relationship. So to me, mentorship is like a rhythmic dance, right? It's shared learned experiences to where the mentee can learn from the mentor, but the mentor is actually in school as well. So it's like a dual learning experience.
I love that. I love that. That dual learning experience because you're both learning from each other. And so that is so amazing. And so if you're looking for a mentor, make sure you're going to make this next step because typically a mentor is not going to come to you and say, I think I should mentor you. And if they do, you might want to be a little leery of that. That's like somebody coming up to you and saying, hey, you know what? I'm your wife. I'm your husband. You don't even know this person. But when you make the first move, because this is what you need in your life, then guess what? That relationship can start growing and start emerging. And just on Monday, when you were talking in the conversation with the mentor, and you talked about that engagement piece and how important it is to engage, how important it is to not only engage with the people you know, but engage in your community, engage with the people around you. So talk about how important. There's some people who feel like they're called to a community and they want to pour into that community. They want to give the gifts, the tools, the talents that they have to that community. Talk about that engagement. How do we engage individuals when it's time to get out there and pour? And as you always say, make sure your pour is pure, that your heart is pure, that you really care about this group of people. So let's talk about that a little bit, about how do you pour and how do that pour stays pure when you're pouring into a community of people?
I think the mentor has to be aware of their motives, right? Because the mentor can't be insecure. I'm going to say that one more time for the people in the back, and I don't want to scream it out, but I feel my help in here with us on tonight. As it relates to a pure pour, if you are a mentor, you can't be insecure about the emerging. What I've learned is that if you're going to really pour into a person or a community or a space, be it ministry, marketplace, you must be a student. You got to study that group. But not only do you have to study, you have to be present because presence is a part of your show up. That's a part of engagement. You can't engage with a community or with a person if you can't be present when it's important. One of the things as a mentor I pride myself on is being present for those who are present for me. That's again that dual relationship. Just like you show up for me, I show up for you. And it's this kind of dual learning. And I know there are some that may say, well, your mentor can't have enough time if he's got enough time. And that's everybody's different modality. But as my mentorship modality, I believe that it's dual learned. I think it's a rhythmic dance. I think that the mentor must be present. I think he must be active. And I think if he's going to properly engage in a community, you got to understand that people change and seasons change. right? I'm going to say that again, that people change and their seasons change, because the person who I mentored, starting off mentoring you, you're not the same person that I started mentoring. You've changed. Your skill set has changed. All of these things have evolved. And as you grow, I have to grow too. I'm required to grow if I'm going to continue to mentor you. So I think you got to be a student. I think you got to be present. You got to understand communication and the value of communication. You got to speak in a language that the listener or the mentee can understand so that they can get the tools that they need. I believe if you do that, you'll see effective goal completion with that mentorship relationship. But you got to be present. You can't mentor a group that you won't be present with. I'm going to say that again. You cannot mentor a group that you won't be present with. I believe, especially when it comes to males, if you're going to mentor a male, you got to be present in some of their good times and their bad times. You got to be when they're on the mountaintop, but you can't run from them when they're in the valley. A good mentor knows how to transition the mountaintop and the valley experience. That's what I believe. And that's what I've learned to be true with over 20 plus years of doing it.
Those are some great nuggets. Definitely being able to be present and at different stages of a person's life, because from year to year, this person is changing and evolving. And if you're really pouring into that person, you want to see them evolve, and you don't want to keep coaching them at the same level. You want to see them say, hey, I got this, but this is an area that I don't understand. What can I do? And so I always talk about, everyone talks about men, mentoring men, but I always tell people, if you grew up without your father, I feel you need a male mentor, and you have to have a spiritual father. And so, because I never knew my father, but I do feel that because I sought mentorship in you, and because I have a spiritual father, not in word, but in deed, it made me not have father issues. It made me not seek relationships to fill voids because of that. And let's talk about that a little bit, because some people are a little leery of that. But as you say, you have to know who is going to be pure, who is going to have integrity, who you can trust yourself with, and they're going to steer you in the right way, in a godly way, and know that's what you need. Because I feel that I've grown in areas, and I've gone farther in areas. I wouldn't be doing this podcast tonight if it was not for you. Without you saying, someone needs to hear your voice. You have something to say. So I wouldn't be doing this podcast if it wasn't for you. And I've had women to tell me, yeah, you can do it. But it's nothing like that affirmation or that confirmation you get when you feel like you have your father pushing you to the next level. You can't go. Just as in with my spiritual father, I would have never went on my missions trip without him. I was about to change my mind. He said, it's too late now. I already turned in the paperwork. So when you have that male mentor and that spiritual father in your life, let's talk about how that helps you navigate your father issues that you may have, and you won't be clinging to the wrong types of relationships.
Now, fatherhood. You see, I kind of sat up in my seat because that's kind of like my area. I think one of the things as it relates to fatherhood is that we've allowed society to make us dilute the role of a father. So we got to deal with that piece first. A father, and I'm a spiritual guy, so I'm coming from a spiritual perspective. The father's role is so important because they're the progenitor, right? They're the foundation. They're the place at which you work from, but it's also your place of safety. It's your place of protection. It's your place of clear identity. One of the things that a father does is that a father articulates to the son or the daughter who they can be. They can do that because the seed comes from the man. I ain't got time to mess with that tonight, but I need us to understand. This is what I tell my sons. You may not be the type of, if I'm a pecan tree, let me say it like this. If I'm a pecan tree, then you're going to be a pecan tree. Now, the type of fruit you produce is based on your level of getting into the soil. But whether or not you're going to be a pecan tree is null and void because that's what you come from. We know we come from a creative God, right? So creativity is going to be in our DNA. It's going to be in our fiber. It's going to be in who we are. So when God made us, he made us like him. So what the Father does is point you back to who you could be if the world hadn't bruised you. So that's the importance of fatherhood. Fathers named the seed. If you go back scripturally, you begin to go back and study, it was the father who named the child. Why? Because the father carries the seed, right? I'm saying all that to say, and there's one more point about the father that we don't talk about enough, and that's the father's blessing. It's a phenomenon in scripture, but the Father's blessing has the ability to settle all the doubt. It blocks and breaks all glass ceilings when the Father blesses his child forward. It's almost like a push in the realm of the spirit that manifests itself in the natural to get you to be who you are. So oftentimes, if people notice and we talk and we have conversations like you and I have all the time, I'm always encouraging you to be your authentic self, because you don't have to be a cheap copy of a great original when God has already designed you uniquely. You have to be yourself. And when you be yourself, nobody can beat you at being you. Think about it. Most of the things that people struggle with is because they don't believe that they could do it. I wonder what would happen. I feel my preach on here, and I know that, listen, I wonder what would happen if we really took the intellectual ability that was given to us by God to tap into who God says that we are, without the trauma, without the bruising, but just in our identity. If we agreed with God, I wonder how many cures for cancer we would already have, how many businesses we would already have, how many books or podcasts that we will already have, all because people believe who they are. So if anybody is in relationship with me and we get onto that fatherhood piece, I'm going to always push that they know who they are. And you knowing who you are shouldn't intimidate me because I know who I am. Does that make sense? So if we're doing that, I think that's how we get the father's space, because that father's role in the son's life has a way, and in the daughter's life has a way of making us be better when the father's role is honored and respected and acknowledged. But you'd be shocked at how many people got access to a father, but because their community has diluted the role of the father, then they don't get the blessings that comes with that role. And that's a challenge that we have in the world. That's why we need more men to step up and be who they are called to be.
That is so true, because when you have that father's blessing, and a lot of people, they kind of brush off, everybody just says, oh, it's my spiritual father, and they just kind of brush those things off. But just knowing how important they are, you wouldn't just give those titles to anybody. You wouldn't give anybody those roles in your life. You're saying people are your spiritual father, but they don't have integrity. They don't have endurance. You don't see the fruit of what they're doing. So that the seed that you want to have, saying that birthed you, so you got to think about those things and the importance of what what a father means and what a spiritual father means. So this is a Christian podcast, so you can do whatever you want to do in this podcast. I just want to let you know that, and that's why we're talking about spiritual fathers. We're talking about that next week, and we're talking about how important it is to have that in your life, because I'm telling you, half of the things that I've done is because of having you as a mentor and having my spiritual father. And you have to see their heart. And when you see the person's heart, you really know that they're for you. You know that they're for you. And you should be able to pinpoint when you saw the person's heart. And so about a few years ago, I went through this struggle. I thought I was going to lose my spiritual father. And it was tough. It was tough. And you were praying for me. And I sent you that picture the day that he walked through the door. It was January the 6th. His hands was up. And that's hard to navigate. You know, and you prayed for me. You let me know he's going to be okay. I want to know, did I not pray enough? What did I not do? But you let me know you are who you are, and things happen. But guess what? That taught me to see the power of a miracle, a walking miracle. No one has a stroke in December and walks in January. Like that's just in that's just not medically possible. That's not scientifically possible. That doesn't happen. So even though I was going through that time and like praying, but you were there to say, listen, daughter, listen, Minty, it's gonna be okay. I've been where you are. I had to say goodbye to my spirit. So my mind was prepared either way, but I was believing God for this miracle, and you stood with me because you had a pure heart. You weren't prepping as some people do, as they say, oh, you need to come over here, daughter. I'm gonna be you never cross those lines. You respect the boundaries that I have with my personal pastor. You respect that. And so when you're looking for someone that you want to be a voice, they have to respect the things that you have in your life. They have to respect your spiritual leader. They have to respect your husband. They have to respect the things that are important to you, because if not, they're not pouring pure to you, and you're not receiving what you need to grow as a person. And so I just definitely want to thank you, because that was like one of the hardest times of my life. And you were there, and I saw your heart. You made sure I was okay. You would text me. It just was what I needed in that space and at that time. And so that's how you know when a person is there with you through the thick and the thin, when you are falling apart and you don't know, but they give you that push to let you know you got it. You can do this. And so that's what a mentor is for. They're there to push you. The impact of a mentor is so diverse. It's so many layers, and it's all what you want to receive, because sometimes you can have the best mentor in the world, but if you don't receive what they're pouring and go out and execute. And so I have this new saying that I've been saying all 2024, that we are executing in excellence. And in order to do that, you have a responsibility to be accountable to someone. You have a responsibility. The people that you say have the voice in your life, you can't get upset when they say something you don't like. Or like, okay, I hear you. Okay, but what about this? It's not a yes man for your future, but it's someone to have hard conversations and let you know, hey, you might need to do this. You might need to seek God a little bit more. I don't know about that. You might need to seek him to find the right answer. And so I appreciate that, and having that in you. And so that's just been a great thing to have in my life. And so I just want to kind of shift a little bit as we go on. And so I usually have some questions. So one of the questions I want to ask, what do you wish people ask you about more of? They don't know this facet of you. What is it that you wish people would ask you about more?
That's a great question. I really wish people would ask me more about how to live in a place where you're not there yet. I wish people would ask or inquire, how do you manage the middle when you're in between? As an individual who's changing and shifting, many spaces in my life, I've been in the middle. And in the middle does not mean that you're not headed in the right direction, but there's a lot of traumas, experiences, hurt feelings, all of that in the middle. I wish people would ask me, how do you manage the middle so that we don't have to keep stopping and starting? Because that's what happens when we're managing the middle. You get discouraged. You feel like you're not there yet. I wish people would ask me that more. And what I would tell them if they ask me, since you asked me that question, what I would give them 3 tips on managing the middle. The first thing I would tell them to do is acknowledge where they are. You got to understand when you're not there yet. because you would be shocked at how many people who are listening to this podcast today who are in the middle of some of the biggest transitions ever in their life. And they're frustrated because they're not there yet. But here is the truth. Nobody's there yet. You're going to always be in the middle. That's the first thing. The second thing I wish that I could tell them would be is to enjoy the journey in the middle. Because a lot of times the frustration causes us to miss the gold nuggets that are in the middle. It's the middle that's been one of my greatest classrooms. It has taught me how to keep my character. It has taught me how to develop my prayer life. It has taught me how to understand who I am and what I bring to the table. It's given me the language to articulate who I am and what I do. All of that is learned in the middle. But if we spend too much time complaining, we don't get that. And the third and final thing that I would leave people with the middle piece is to learn how to pray in the middle. Learn how to seek God. Learn how to turn your plate over. Learn how to engage the kingdom of God, right? All through prayer. And when you do that, sit or stand in the seat of expectation, waiting on the full manifestation to show up. Because what we do know that if God said it, it is. I'm going to say that one more time. For those who are listening, if God said it, it is. And just because it has not happened yet, your place right now is not an indication of your destiny. The promise is an indication of your destiny. So you have to wait on it. And you have to make sure you don't get discouraged while you wait. That's what I would tell people if they had to manage that middle. Because the middle is difficult, Dr. Taniko. It's a hard place. Most people quit in the middle. That's how Dr. Miles Monroe would talk about the graveyard being the most influential place in the world, because people lose it in the middle and they wind up leaving here with uncompleted goals. They didn't do the books. They didn't do the businesses, all because they did not manage the middle. I wish people would ask me, how do you manage the middle? And I would tell them, keep going. I'm not there yet, but I'm going. It may take me a minute, but I'm getting there. I'm not where I used to be. That's a good place to shout right there. We don't know how to celebrate the small victories in the middle. I'm not there yet, but I'm not where I used to be. Thanks be unto God. Right? Glory to the Most High. I am not where I was, but I'm going to be better tomorrow, because tomorrow is a new day. And I think you got to prepare. So that's what I would tell people more. That's a great question. Thank you.
That is amazing. I definitely better ask you about the middle. I'm in the middle, and you got to keep going, because you always say you got to keep going. You got to lock in, and you got to keep going. I do have my next question would be the best advice you've ever heard.
That's interesting. The best advice I've ever heard is a quote. Bishop T.D. Jakes said it. He said, if you continue to do what you've always done, you will always be where you've always been. Greatest advice I've ever learned. To go a little bit further from that quote, there's a poem by, I think it's Edgar A. Guest. And the poem says, figure it out for yourself, my lad. You have all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment, they all began. So start from the top and say, I can. It goes on to say, Dr. Taniko, it says, look them over, the wise and the great. They take their food from a common plate. So in other words, what Edgar A. Guest was saying is that everybody has a level of greatness, but they must choose the path that they want to take. And everybody has the equipment. So that's some of the best advice that I've had. And I have to add one from my mom. My mom used to give me these affirmations that was probably the ultimate understanding of what I do now. My mom used to tell me every day to say these words, I am somebody. She would make me say that every day. I said it to the point to where I'm finally at a place in my life where I believe it. So when you do that, then I think you can really shift your life forever.
Those were some great answers. And so I have one more question before we kind of dive into something else. What what are you reading right now? We're always going to be avid readers, and you always let us know how do you read. You have to have certain types of books, not all Christian books, some in your field, some in your, where you want to go. So what are you reading right now? What is in your library, Pastor Willie?
So actually, I'm actually in my library right now, doing this podcast. The book that I just finished, there's two that I'm reading. One is called The Coddling of the American Mind. The Calling of the American Mind. I have to find the author of the book, but the premise of the book is simply this: is that we've raised our children in environments that has allowed them to not be able to handle adversity. That's the premise or the understanding of the book of The Calling of the American Mind, and how that may have caused our children to struggle even with the way they view themselves and all of that. So The Calling of the American Mind is a book that I'm reading, and I just finished reading. And another book, because I have to do two, would be Dirty Knees and Green Thumbs, or Green Thumbs and Dirty Knees. I can't remember which way it is. But it's by Apostle Brian Meadows. And that book, it is Dirty Knees and Green Thumbs. That's what it is. Dirty Knees and Green Thumbs by Apostle Brian Meadows. It is the best understanding of agriculture and ministry planning. Best book ever. So much so that I've been reading it for some time. It's so rich that I can't read it in big chunks. You got to take page by page and digest it so you can get the revelation and understanding. So those are the two that I'm reading right now.
All right, I knew you were reading. That's one of the premises of, if you're going to be mentored by Pastor Diggs, he's gonna ask you what you're reading. So I'm gonna tell you what I'm reading. I am reading a prayer book by Pastor John Hanna right now, and I'm also reading The Black Girl's Guide to Wealth, and so I'm reading that chunk by chunk, because she really is changing my mindset. One of the quotes that has just took my mind by storm that she says in the book is, the amount of money you have in the bank will never make you feel safe if you're not safe in your mind first. So if you don't feel that safety in the mind when it comes to money, you're going, even if you got $1 million, you're still not going to feel secure. You're going to keep running. You're going to keep chasing. You're going to keep grinding hard. And so that kind of took me for a whoop. So I'm digesting it. How can I feel safe with my money relationship? So those are my two books I'm reading right now, because I know I have to say that, but they are amazing books. And so we're almost at the end of my podcast, but I want to take a moment to talk about your modality for prayer. I feel, now this is me. Now don't everybody else can get upset. I feel that you are the intercessor of all intercessors. I feel like if I give you a prayer request, because I don't ask a lot of people to pray for me. Now, I'll tell you that right now, just being straight up, and everybody know that. If I ask you to pray for me, I know that when you say hello, God is gonna say, "What's up?" That's just the bottom. That's just the bottom line. And so, you have really helped me to grow in my prayer ministry so much, and to understand one of the greatest things you said, that prayer is legalistic. And when you know how, you know the rules, and you know the language of the kingdom, then you know how to navigate to get where you need to be and have jurisdiction and to grow. And so I'm grateful that that part of you, I honor that so much because I grow so much when I'm in your presence. And I feel like it's this extra push to pray harder or to engage more than I ever have, because you just have this mantle of prayer that is just precious. And just even children, like when I think about TJ and the way TJ prays and the tears just comes to my eyes, and it's all because you have something that ignites the fire inside of an intercessor. And so I'm just honored to just be a part of that part of my life, because I don't think that I would have been moving how I'm moving or feel like I have the authority that I have if it wasn't for your push and your nuggets and your pour. So I want to just ask you to share a little bit about um, your prayer life and how did it evolve? What is your prayer origin?
Well, um, much like many intercessors, my prayer origin started with a problem with one of my sons. One of my sons was going through a challenging time in their life. And I remember as a dad wanting to protect and help, but I was constantly on defense. And I remember it like yesterday. I had came from a service, and I remember communicating at our dinner table, because we had dinner table conversations and all of that. I remember talking to them about certain things not to do, be careful of, and God was giving me insight to get ahead of it. And once I realized that prayer was the communication system of the kingdom, and that the modality of prayer is a studied academic system, then that let me know that there had to be a level of study in prayer that I had to do in order to be effective. And I understand that as it relates to family, as it relates to children, as it relates to your house, you have jurisdiction in that area because it's given to you by God. So a person who does not understand their jurisdiction cannot pray effectively in the area that they're designed to cover over. So God taught me in my role as a father on how to cover my children. There would be times that Lady Shaitan and I would just begin to pray in our house, and the power of God will fall, and our kids would literally be slain in the spirit in our house. And we just begin to start seeking the Lord. So the more and more time I spent with God, the more and more insight God would give me ahead of time. So I wasn't on defense anymore. I was now knowing that, oh, these things may happen. Boom, here's this roadblock here. And we begin to just go ahead of it and dismantle it. And once I saw that those systematic things or principles in the kingdom worked, I put them into practice. And I teach it to everybody. Here's another thing in time prayer, back to mentorship. This is what makes me a different mentor versus most mentors. I have a prayer life. I pray for my mentees. They won't die prematurely. The devil is a liar. They'll die when they're finished. They'll finish. They will not leave this world until the Lord said so. The only thing I'm telling you, I say that with a level of conviction to know that it's prayer that protects us and gives us longevity, because prayer gives us insight, right? So I tell all of my mentees, I'm praying for you, and my desire is that you don't leave here before time. Hopefully that kind of gave some language. And it looks like my computer is going dead on me.
Uh-oh.
So I got to plug it up. Let me plug it up. I'm listening to you.
Okay. So I am excited about you just definitely being here, and just the mentorship piece, and just definitely to tell individuals, if you are seeking a mentor to really, number one, know who you would like to have a voice in your life. And number two, look at their life to see if they're bearing fruit. And number three, and the most important thing I would tell anybody about getting a mentor, is making sure they have integrity. I know sometimes we want, some people are charismatic, they have gifts, they have so many different things, but integrity is very, very important when it comes down to the impact of a mentorship. They're not going to take advantage of you, they're not going to exploit you, but integrity is so important when it comes to you being a mentor, and to you being mentored is the integrity and the accountability piece. So I definitely, as we get ready to close, I want to talk about, let's talk about, we can just go back and forth. 10 things we think that is important to mentorship. And I was just saying, one, I believe integrity is important to mentorship because you want a pure pour and you want a pure, as you always say.
All right. So two, I'll throw one back at you. I would say that prayer is important in mentorship.
All right. I would say accountability is
Mhm.
very important when it comes down to mentorship.
All right. So three, tossing it back to you. I would say honesty is important in mentorship.
Okay. I would say having a safe space, being able to have that safe space to really share who you are is very important for mentorship.
Mhm. I think the intelligence of the kingdom is important in mentorship. And let me give some language to that. It's important because you must be a student. And sometimes God downloads to the mentor and the mentee things about each other that helps the relationship. So that's why I think having that intellect of the kingdom is important.
All right. I think knowing when it's time to make a transition when you're in mentorship is very important. You might need to grow a little bit. So knowing when it's time to make that transition and when it's time to, hey, and have honest conversations about, hey, I need you to help me in this area and not just sit back and not say anything.
Mhm. I think great, great, great. I think also too, there has to be a level of skill
Hmm.
that's in mentorship. So you must have the skill to be able to do what's needed in the mentorship relationship.
Yes. I think a level of trust
Mhm.
is very important because when you're being mentored, um, you're going to trust them sometimes with ideas, thoughts, and things that you have never even told to anyone. You may get an idea from God, and you have to trust that this person is going to navigate you in the right way to birth what it is that God is calling you to do. So, trust is very important when it comes down to um, mentorship.
I got one for you. The mentor needs to have influence because the mentor should be able to open up doors and provide new opportunities for their mentee.
Oh, that one was good. The mentor, I would say, as a mentee, the one thing that you need to have is honor.
Mhm.
And I think honor, that's a word. It sounds like, how they say the analog phones, but honor is very important because if you don't honor the gift that God has allowed to help you move forward, the mentorship relationship is really in vain. It's really it's not the promise what it
Mhm.
should be. It's gonna be an Ishmael. It's not gonna be an Isaac because you're not honoring what you're supposed to have. So I feel honor is really important um in a mentor and mentee relationship. Was
Mhm.
that 10?
I think it's 10, but I'm gonna throw a bonus out there. Let me throw a bonus back to you. I think you have to have time. There's a level of grace and time that the mentor needs to be able to support the mentee, and vice versa. So time.
Time. Yes, time is great. It has been such an honor and a privilege to have you on here tonight, Pastor Willie. It has been amazing. You have dropped some amazing nuggets. I hope that as you think about this podcast, whether you're watching the replay or you're live right now, listen, go back, take some copious notes. And if you're thinking about a mentor, these are some tools that you'll need. And if you are a mentor and you feel like you need to grow, there was something for the mentor and the mentee. So the impact of mentorship is powerful. You'll go to the next level. Your life will never be the same. But there's an accountability that you have to have, and you have to take the steps to get the right mentor and know when it's time to transition. You may not have the right mentor. You may have picked the wrong mentor, and you may feel like, I don't ever want a mentor again. But I hope the tools and strategies that Pastor Willie and I shared about our mentor and mentee relationship will restore your faith and know that you need someone to help you get to the next level. God is relational. He had disciples and he discipled them and he helped them get to the next level, and look at the amazing things that he's done. So if you're looking at it in that way, guess what? You're going to need the mentor in your life. So I'm going to give the last words to you, Pastor Willie. I'm so honored. I love you so much. Thank you so much for everything that you do, not only for me, but for all your mentees, how you mentor boys, just everything, how you're on that campus, you're mentoring the future leaders of social workers. And so I'm excited about your next and what God is going to do for you. So thank you for being here tonight with me.
Dr. Taniko, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share. If I had to leave the audience with this, it would be three things that you need to do. Make sure you show up in your authentic self. Nobody can beat you being you. Number two, get the help that you need. Build a relationship around you that's safe, but will also hold you accountable. And the last thing I will leave you with is the value of commitment. Oftentimes we talk about getting to our next level and doing all these things. You can't do that if you don't commit to it. Commitment and discipline are the things that you need to do to get to the level that you are destined to get to. Don't you dare quit in the middle. I'm Pastor Willie Diggs. It has been a joy to be with you, Dr. Taniko. And again, I can't wait to be back.
Thank you so much. You have been on the Queen's Couch, and this is the place where queens collaborate and do not collide. In the month of June, we have all kings on the Queen's Couch. So we will see you next week, where we will have my spiritual father, Bishop Johnny White, and two of his amazing spiritual sons, and myself, talking about the transformational power of a spiritual father. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Hello and welcome to the Queen's Couch podcast with our amazing host, Dr. Taniko Victoria. She curates a space for women where all women are encouraged to collaborate and do not collide. Join us on the couch tonight.